All right. Good morning, everybody. This is Megan Brannon. I'm going to go through some announcements here before we get into the technical specs of installing these solar systems, and then we'll talk about a few more of the details that Samantha actually asked in the chat. So just a couple of things really quick before we get started. So City of Austin adoption of NEC 2023 and enforcement of 23046 TAP rule. We've been making this announcement for a while, but we just want to make sure that anybody that's new to this call or any new contractors are aware that we now have adopted the NEC 2023 code, and we'll be enforcing that. The AE AE solar permitting manual is now online. So if you guys have questions around solar permitting and how that is supposed to look, please look that up, and you will see it there. We've got a new solar meter variance form as well. So we'll provide links there so you guys have access to that. And then also we've got dig updates coming soon. We are very, very close to publishing those. So we will have those soon for you all. So please keep an eye on the website, and yeah, you'll see those there shortly. All right, having said that, I'm going to try to get into some of the details here. So again, just keep in mind, we're on the NEC 2023 code now, and we are enforcing NEC 230.46. I'll just read this one so you guys have a reference to it. But effective January 1st, 2023, pressure connectors and devices for splices and taps installed on service conductors shall be marked suitable for use on the line side of the service equipment or equivalent. So make sure that they're marked, make sure that everything's compliant, and those are looking good. This applies to any permit submitted after August 1st, 2023. And if the connector doesn't contain the specified marking, inspectors will accept spec sheets and making sure that it's rated for this use. So please make sure to have those on site. All right, so we have talked about this again in the past before. We've now got new updates to the Austin Build and Connect, or AB&C portal. We had electric permit enhancements for the auxiliary power permit that were launched November 1st of this last year, which included better auto billing. So if you guys have seen those re-inspection fees that don't get billed, I'm so sorry for those. Those should stop for anything that is submitted after that 11/1 date. So you guys shouldn't see that in the future. It also includes a DGPA review that is automatic. So once you add that DGPA to the permit, AE review, our team is going to conduct that review and then add those details to the aux permit directly. So there's a slightly easier process there. You can also upload documents throughout the life cycle of the permit, and we encourage you to do so, especially if any of your as-builts changed from what was initially spec'd. And then, of course, there's a new final solar scheduling process, inspection scheduling process. We have had a couple of bugs in the scheduling process, so please bear with me, but that is live. If you guys are seeing it, you're able to use it, please do so, and we'll get those inspections scheduled. And then finally, as we noted previously, the AE Solar Permitting Manual is now online. Here's what it looks like. Feel free to check it out on our AE Solar Inspections page, and you will find hopefully all the details you're looking for there. And of course, you can reach out to us at solarinspections@austinenergy.com if you've got questions. I do see a question in the chat. Jamaica, no more Smartsheet. Keep in mind, we're going to use Smartsheet for a little while. So there's going to be a transition period while we sort of, again, work out the bugs of the new system and make sure everything's working as expected before rolling off of Smartsheet. So yeah, it's not going away. We're going to hopefully get you guys a little more familiar with the new process before we take it away, but just keep that in mind. That'll be a future. Alrighty, so then the new solar meter variance form is now live as well. Advanced Metering Engineering recently updated this in solar meter installation alternate location form, or meter variance. Again, it's now available online on our website. You can go to that link there and you will find it. And just keep in mind, anything submitted after January 16th of this year does require that new form. And it's going to ask you for all of the details that you need, including your one-line diagram, details around why you need the variance, questions like that are all now included in that online form. Alrighty, and then as promised, dig updates coming soon. The inspectors and I have worked on this for the last, 5-6 months. So we've got quite a few updates there that will be coming down the pipeline. Please do keep in mind that distribution interconnection guide is always on our website on the electric service design and planning page. So if you want to see the latest and greatest, go to that link, click that link, and you will see the dig there. Alrighty, and now I'm going to turn it over to Stuart Prior for our overview of the interconnection process. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. So as Megan said, first we're on the 2020 NEC code cycle as of the end of 23. We're also using Article 690 and 705 are probably two of the most pertinent articles that you'll find in there. Of course, chapters 1 through 4 of the NEC will be relevant. But 705 is going to give you some great guidelines for interconnecting your system, whether that's a supply side tap or a load side connection. We've got the Austin Energy Design Criteria Manual, of course, which is chock full of good information. I would say section 1.9 is is of much relevance. It's the metering section that gives you lots of guidelines on what you'll need to do to interconnect and use proper meter equipment. We have the Austin Energy the Distribution Interconnection Guide, which spells out in a little more detail what we require of PV systems, how they need to be designed. There's some good diagrams in there, as well as some interconnection documents having to do with how to interconnect our systems. There's the Contractor Quick Reference Guide, which is also inside of the dig. I would recommend printing those few pages out. It's a pretty short list, but it would be very helpful for you guys when you're trying to pass systems on the first go round. There's also the City of Austin Electrical Ordinance, which spells out our color codes, license requirements for participating contractors. And of course, we've got the incentive program guidelines. This will tell you if you're seeking rebate funding, how you'll need to build your system out. This has a lot to do with like shading issues and using new material, and having products that are listed, things like that. And finally, we have the International Residential Code, the 2021. There's one section, R328, that is of most relevance, that has to do with PV and energy storage systems. So please reference that before you install. So a day in the life of the solar project. Again, those are the references here that you'll find useful. I think we got a question here. We'll get back to that question. Yeah, it's about a week, or 3 to 5 days, I should say, for permitting your system. As a starting point, you'll contact Development Services Department and submit your application to the Austin Build and Connect website. You'll need to submit plans with your permit, and you got to pay off your balance too before that permit goes active. And shutdowns, that's the number right there. Or they prefer email, so you can email St. Elmo Distribution at austinenergy.com. And if you're in a situation where you'd like a meter variance, if you can't group your meters, that's going to be the email address there, AE Advanced Metering Engineering at austinenergy.com. Right now, it's about 3 months for a service shutdown, and it could take up to 2 weeks to get an approved meter variance or a response on a meter variance request. Apply as early as possible, and don't build until you've got your approval documents from us. And as far as help with the installation, you've got the interconnection guide and that quick reference guide, which is that 3-page document you can print out. I think it's on page 77 of the dig. So I'd recommend taking that with you for your final assessment of your project before you request inspection. And don't forget that if your name is on the permit, the work belongs to you. You will be accountable for the workmanship and keeping the permit active. So, and finally, the inspection. We've got an inspection checklist, which is also published in the dig. And right now we're at a 2 to 3 week wait time. And then a 5 to 10 business day after inspection is when the actual meter will be set and the customer will have their final permission to operate. Keep in mind too, the contractor's licensed electrician must be present at the final inspection. Customer attendance is optional, so that's your master, your journeyman, or your residential wireman, and they're there so that they can open up equipment and test functionality of the system for us. So what's different about Austin? Maybe most importantly, we have a solar PV meter, which is required for all solar installations. There is a newly published list of approved meter sockets, which you should reference. You can just search Austin Energy approved meter sockets, and it will be should be the first link that you find. You should have no loads on the solar side of the PV meter, meaning like, behind the PV meter, so that you've created a received read on that PV meter, and that's because we have value of solar, and all of the solar production needs to get credited to the customer before it serves any loads or goes back to the grid. Our color code you'll find is different than pretty much anywhere else, which is red for residential services. It's going to be line 1 red, line 2 black, as opposed to black red, which you're used to seeing. So you can see in the design criteria manual that'll spell that out. And you need a full-size neutral through your inverter or your aggregate panel, not 70%, as national code would allow. Also, you got to have a minimum number 6 copper for your equipment grounding conductor from your interconnection point to the PV disconnect. After which you can refer to the NEC for required equipment ground sizing. For supply side connections, the panel must have a main breaker. It's got to be a fusible disconnect and rated a minimum of 60 amps. So for some reason, even you have a system that doesn't require 60 amp disconnect, you'll still need to have an enclosure that's rated at 60 amps. You also need 2 inches of clearance around all meter cans. That will get rejected if you don't have it on all sides. You need the address numbers of the home that need to be 2 inches high, black on white, and they can be on any of those enclosures there, the meter cans or the distribution enclosures. We also require surge protectors on all solar installations. So if you get lucky, the house already has one, but if it doesn't, you'll need to install one along with your installation. And above that, we have rebate program requirements, which is that your system needs to be at least 75%, needs to have a total solar resource fraction of 75%. So if one of the inspectors asks for it on site during the inspection because you're requesting a rebate and it looks shady, you'll have 10 business days to get that to us. Another important thing is the tilt of your modules of your array need to be at least 5 degrees, and that's in line with the common manufacturer's instructions that will warranty modules only with at least a 5-degree tilt. So what does a good line diagram look like? You can see here, this has got plenty of detail as far as the make and model of inverters. It's got all your proper wire sizing and wire types. It's calling out all components like junction boxes in between the array and aggregate panels. Your overcurrent protection is called out. You've got line to load called out properly on the solar meter. That's a common point of confusion for contractors, is that the solar is going to land on the line side of your PV meter and the load side of your PV meter is going to go to your interconnection point. They've also done a good job at calling out the existing service specifications there. They've got a main breaker, and they've called out downstream of their interconnection what equipment is also existing on site. You can see there's a stamp here. That stamp is there because this is a battery project. There's an ESS there, and we require engineering stamps on any projects that involve energy storage systems. And here's an example of an equipment wall that is designed well. You've got your meters grouped and your disconnects grouped. So if there was an emergency at all, meters could be pulled, and within one step, an emergency personnel could disconnect the main service and the PV service without having to relocate. So, and also it's got all labels as per NEC 690 and 705. It's important too that an electrician takes a close look at these services before installation, because you don't want to get caught in a situation where there's expensive upgrades that were not accounted for in the beginning of the process. So when will there be service repairs that are necessary? Here are 4 of the big ones. If the service conduit is separated, like in that left picture there, we'll find this on the east side commonly. If the ground is settled over time and you've got a service conduit where the conductors are exposed like that, that's something that will require a repair permit in order to fix before solar can get inspected. And then, of course, there's the working clearances required by the NEC. You can see that switchgear there is on a staircase, so you don't have your 110/26 working clearances. So in that case, you'd have to either move that switchgear or find some way to reorient those stairs so that each piece of equipment has a flat working surface. The meter location, that one's kind of tricky to see, but if you look closely, the customer has their revenue meter on that porch right there. It was originally built on the side of a house, but then a customer might build a porch or a deck over the revenue meter and sort of enclose it, which is a violation of the design criteria. So if that's the case, it's definitely beneficial to be aware of it before you install the solar system. That one, the switchgear that you can see, the solar has been installed, and the solar was good, except for the fact that the revenue meter cam was in the wrong location. So they had to backtrack and do an expensive relocation of the main service. And then lastly, we have the no exterior main, or there's a rag riser or a service entrance cable that is outdated and not approved by Austin Energy. So you can see in there, that's the revenue meter there that's painted the color of the house, but it doesn't go to an exterior disconnect. It goes into the house, which is where its disconnect is. So that's something that we'll need to get repaired before we can do a solar inspection. So for supply side connections, or line side taps, as they're colloquially called sometimes, you can look at the interconnection guide appendix B. If you're doing a supply side tap, you will need to have it done in a main panel that's got a main breaker. So if there isn't a main breaker, you'll need to upgrade that main panel so that you can do a supply side tap. Some common errors are that the solar disconnect isn't within 10 feet of the tap, which is a local requirement and an NEC requirement. There is another common error is that there is not enough room in the panel. So if you refer to 312.8 in the NEC, that'll give you some guidelines as far as tapping in a location that has an appropriate amount of room. And also you've tapped and you haven't installed a 60 amp main disconnect, or at least the enclosure is not rated for 60 amps. So like I was saying, even if you've got a system that's 20 or 30 amps and you can get away with a 30 amp disconnect, the enclosure itself still needs to be rated for 60 amps if it's a supply side connection. So how to do a supply side connection properly. On the left there, you can see that the conductors that are tapped, the main conductors, are tapped in a straight run of conductor. And in the photographs from the field there, you can see that there's nice ample room for those taps, and they've tapped them on a straight run of that conductor, not in a spot where it is bent and not properly attached. And then it spells it out on the left there. That's an incorrect placement. And one of those conductors is bent and one is not fully seated into the tapping device. So it's unlikely that you'll find a panel with a side mounted main breaker like that that allows enough space for those extra devices in there. So yeah, not every tap is created the same. Just I guess think deeply about it before you do a supply side tap. So sometimes it's allowed, sometimes you might need to upgrade that service. So as far as array design, whenever possible, refrain from installing the panels that exceed the roof plane. So if you do exceed the roof plane in any direction, either the peak or the bottom edge of the roof, you'll need to get an engineer's approval, and your plan set will need to be stamped. And that'll need to be attached to the permit. So how to perform a shade analysis. Like we said, you need to have a total solar resource fraction of 75% or greater to get rebate funding. And your shade analysis should provide a map. So you've got to do this on site because you've got to be on the roof and you've got to provide photos at each location where the array is proposed to be set. You need to provide a total average resource fraction for the array or the arrays. You need to be on site and in person to do this. And a part of that TSRF number includes tilts and azimuths too, because that all plays into how much solar resource you'll actually be collecting. To avoid a warning, again, that total number should be 75% or greater, and you need to provide a legitimate shade analysis within 10 days of an inspector request. A successful project will require collaboration between the design and electrical teams. Some common errors that we see have to do with service upgrade requirements not met. So refer to Austin Energy design criteria, or you can request a pre-con from Solar Inspections at austinenergy.com, and we can meet you on site and assess whether or not service upgrades will be required. Another problem that we see often is that connections are not torqued to proper specifications. This is critical, especially in meter cans and for supply side taps. We've seen some instances of burned up taps if they're not properly torqued. For related projects, you don't have proper, you've got systems that do not meet shading requirements, and also failure to comply with local code and ordinances. If you got any questions, you can also contact Spot and Conduit at that email address below, aeelectricspots@austinenergy.com. So some common design mistakes, working clearance, and if your doors don't, hinge doors don't open to 90 degrees. You can see there that's an end-phase panel that has that weird situation where sometimes you install a box that's too close and it doesn't quite open all the way. As far as meter cans, you should not drill your own holes into meter cans. It's considered damage to that point, and you'll have to replace the meter can. You've got to use the factory knockouts only to go in and out of meter cans. So yeah, seals are not acceptable. So if you drilled a can in a meter can, it will be considered damage and have to be replaced. Please see the design criteria manual for this. Also using unapproved meter cans too. So you're going to have a 200 amp meter can with a bypass handle. If it's not that, it's not approved. If it is one of those, it's still not necessarily approved. You need to look at the list and make sure that the exact make and model is on the approved list for your service voltage. So some reminders about metering and design is that so your main breaker has got to be equal to or less than the meter socket rating. So if you see a 320 amp meter can, for example, with a 400 amp disconnect behind it as the main service, not related to solar, that will be something that you'll have to take into account to either repair or upgrade that so that you can have the solar installed and inspected and not have any issue with the existing meter. A wireway ahead of the billing meter. This is not allowed per our criteria. If you see section 1.8.5, you'll need to consult with distribution metering. And this primarily affects multi-metered properties. So you won't likely see it on in 1 and 2 family dwellings. Also, taps, splices, and communication wires not allowed in meter sockets. So we don't want to have a situation where there's service required by the contractor inside of our meter cans. So the only thing that should go inside of a meter can are the power conductors that are actually being metered. Other than that, you've got to reroute any other conductors to just not through the meter can. And so when your work will alter the service, you can contact distribution metering for feedback before you build, and that's their email address there, aedistributionmetering@austinenergy.com. And this ensures that the installation will not be turned down after a final inspection or when you encounter an unusual service configuration. So we're going to have a knowledge check and questions here. I think there'll be a poll that you guys can answer in on, but if you cannot group the PV and the revenue meters, what form should you fill out? And here we have a poll. All right. Well, what I see is we got 7 responses and everybody's gotten it right.
Cool. 27?
All right, moving on, your friendly neighborhood electrical inspector CJ here to show you the way with permitting. All right, the city has lots of them. There are 4 electrical permit types that all say EP, and unfortunately, sometimes we end up not getting the right one. So we want you to get the right one from the get-go. So first and foremost, you're installing solar or ESS, you have to have that auxiliary power permit. Installation of solar, other distribution energy resources, including ESS, inside and outside of the city limits in the ETJ do still require a permit. Apply online at the ABC portal, or you can call 974-9760 with any permitting inquiries. If you are doing commercial, the commercial plan review automatically kicks a building permit out every single time. There's no real way to get around that. It's just how the system works. Now, whenever you are looking at, do I need an upgrade, a remodel, or a repair permit? An upgrade is for working on the billing meter or the revenue meter or something ahead of the revenue meter, the riser, the mast, the tap box tying into the transformer, something along those lines. You can submit for an electric service planning application, an ESPA, for that upgrade. If you're doing a remodel, you're going to rebuild a service, you're going to rebuild something, and you're going to upgrade, do something else to it, you're going to need that remodel permit. Work on utility side of the commercial meter does require an approved ESPA. And then if you're just going to fix something, work on customer side of billing meter only, that is a repair and does not require an ESPA. All right, so all solar and ESS projects in Austin Energy Territory require an auxiliary power permit from the city of Austin, even if outside the city limits proper. To get the utility company to come out and inspect you, they still have to get a permit with DSD to activate Austin Energy to come out. We will not perform inspection or set the PV meter without this permit. I've had this discussion with state, federal, and different other types of entities as well. Everyone has to get a permit to get a meter. When you apply for the auxiliary permit, use the following language for the permit description in the field. Installation of new or additional kilowatts of rooftop, carport, or ground-mounted solar system to existing, new, or residential or commercial only. If the project does include energy storage or batteries, use language above but change solar system to kilowatt solar and kilowatt energy storage system if you're doing both. If you're doing ESS only, use the language above but change solar system to kilowatts of energy storage system. If using supply side connection for the interconnection, include the language supply side connection for PV and or ESS with that system. Do not install until you have a permit. Work is not supposed to commence without a permit, even if you are applying for it and it's pending but missing information. That is not an active permit. You have to have that permit active. Solar and energy storage systems do not receive a formal electrical plan review for residential or commercial projects. In the near future, we are going to be changing this, but right this moment, they do not receive a review. Work on electrical service, upgrade, repair, remodel requires separate electrical permit. That must be closed before requesting the final solar inspection. Must pay all re-inspection fees and all normal fees before requesting the inspection. Rebated projects, non-participating subcontractors may not pull the auxiliary power permit while another contractor applies for the rebate. The system must be contracted and permitted by the same participating contractor. Common errors, permit not pulled before commencing electrical work, unpaid fees on permits, service permit still open with solar inspection request, permit is expired, and then ordinance 8039A4, not having that permit active. All right, DGPA under 25 kW, your DGPA does not get a review. Just submit that with your permit application. 25 kW to 500 kW, including storage and solar, so a cumulative number, does require a review by the Austin Energy Solar Team. Submit it to DGPA review at austinenergy.com for approval prior to applying for a permit if preliminary review is required. Once approved, submit the permit application. Greater than 500 kW or interconnected generator requires review by the DER integration team. You're going to see the engineers. Submit to AE/DER feasibility at austinenergy.com for hosting capacity analysis and any other inquiries. Submit approved DGPA with the permit application. If you are on the downtown network, requires review by Austin Energy's DER team, same as above. To find out if you're on the downtown network, look in the DIG, the interconnection guide on page 59. There is a map of what constitutes as the downtown network. All right, the meter variance. You must request this prior to installation. If you build everything and realize you need this, it will most likely be denied. So fill out the solar meter request installation alternate location request form and send it to AE Advanced Metering Engineering at austinenergy.com for approval. Usually they'll send someone out to take a look and they'll get it taken care of. Upload that approved meter variance form to your permit once you receive that. Requests are not always granted. Sometimes they give them, sometimes they do not. A controlled outage must be requested prior to any installation that requires a shutdown, service upgrade, transfer switch. You must pull that electrical permit, whether it is a repair to fix something, an upgrade, or a remodel permit. You have to have that active permit in order to email or call St. Elmo Distribution at austinenergy.com, or you can call them at 505-7620, choose option 4, but you have to have that active permit number and your scope of work ready. If registered for the CDP, the Contractor Disconnect Program, follow the instructions on this link and perform the disconnect yourself once you have the approval, but you have to be part of that CDP program. If you just think you're going to cut the seal and get forgiveness, there's usually an $800 fee tacked onto that. And we do have to turn people in for that as we see them. So when do you need a meter variance? If there's a fence, a barricade, you just can't see it. If you're over 20 feet, you will need to get a meter variance. All right. Next,
Let me see.
take control.
Let me see if I can take control. All right. Hopefully this works. All right. Morning, everybody. Happy Friday Eve. We're here to talk about current transformer CT meters. Rule of thumb, CT meters required for installations are 350 amps or over, single phase, or 225 amps or over, three phase. CT meters have windings inside them to transform current from large current to small current that a meter can read. In this case, there will be a multiplier on the customer's bill. This typically only applies to commercial installations. Austin Energy will not provide a CT customer. Austin Energy will not provide the CTs. The customer must provide CTs for solar projects. The inspection process is different. If an instrument-rated CT meter will be used, contact the distribution metering group to schedule CT inspection and meter installation after the PV system is installed and after passing a 304 temporary inspection, but before requesting a final solar inspection. This is something that's relatively newish information, which I think the next slide I can get to will be a little clearer. All right. All instrument-rated PV meters are required to have a CT inspection. For safety purposes, DG Services must have a 304 temp inspection first and remain unenergized for inspection without exception. This is per NFPA 70E safety. Once the 304 is approved, the permitting system will notify DMO to install meter and allow DG service to be energized. CT meters must not be energized prior to metering inspection. Refer to DCM section 1.9.1.9 for proper height requirements. So on CT services, we do need them unenergized. We ask that you guys request the 304 temp before your shutdown date or before your tie-in date. At any point before that during the normal day, so that we can do a full inspection before it's energized, make sure that everything's safe to be energized. Then if you're doing a supply tap where your connection where you're doing a shutdown, you're going to have a later date on that CT inspection during the shutdown also. So that is separate from our inspection. You will need to have a CT inspection. CT inspections happen before it's energized, as well as the 304 temp happen before it's energized. Once the 304 is passed, customer requests a CT inspection at this email address. Once the CT inspection passes, dispatch will order the meters to be programmed. Once programmed, dispatch is notified and the meters are released for install. Dispatch updates them internal AE billing system to include the new net billing meter. AE distribution metering operation techs then have 5 business days to wire the CTs and install the CT meter. After that, contractors are eligible to request a final solar inspection. A lot of dynamics that go on with complex metering. Always feel free to reach out to us with questions on that, as well as always remember to get your emails in for the CT inspections. Meters must be accessible 24 hours a day. They must be grouped within 20 feet, section 1.9.3.1 of DCM, 3 feet of clearance in front of meter, 2-inch clearance around Austin Energy's meter. Center of meter must be between 30 and 72 inches above grade. The standing in front of the meter, that dirt surface must be flat and clear in that 3 foot of clearance as well. If you find a cut seal, please report it to AE Revenue Protection at austinenergy.com. Please do this before we get there. We don't want somebody to be blamed or somebody to be billed that it had nothing to do with it. If you do not report an illegally cut seal, you may be held responsible. New processes for getting seals cut for service work. That would be meter check.
Yes.
For our new process. Common errors: meter is incorrectly wired, improper meter cans, not approved type for a different utility, meters behind lock gate at inspection, temporary meter left inside of permanent meter, knocking out your own holes in this can, must use factory KOs, using plastic and wood anchors. Please double check our approved list of meters as there was a change in the past 3-4 months. We did quit permitting a specific type of meter can. Meter clearance requirements: 2-inch minimum around all meters. Standard offset nipple is not 2 inches, by the way. So we are serious about the 2 inches. It will not pass if a standard offset is in place that does not meet the 2-inch clearance. You got the headroom, you see there, a maximum of 6'6". And you got your clearance, a minimum of 36 inches. That ground must be flat to walk on. If you look at the overhang, it's a maximum of 72 inches over top of that, no more than that. And we are maintaining a 3-foot minimum radius around the gas regulator meter. All right. Must break and isolate the neutral. Cut it put it in a Polaris block or similar isolation bar you can see there inside that meter can. Must be a full-size neutral. Going to the disconnect. Existing service is questionable. Please request a pre-construction meeting via solar inspection request form. I believe that'll turn into ABC as well. Cloth insulated service cable must be replaced on all services if installing solar. There will be no exceptions. And you see that service there on the left there. It's kind of covered. Can't see much. Yep. Careful with your job. You might uncover a whole lot more work than you anticipated. Roof work, common mistakes. Roof penetration is not properly flashed. Poor wire management. Use of material not outdoor rated, UV rated. Unfastened modules, junction boxes, conduit. Not all fittings made wrench tight. All metal not bonded back to the service. Photos of work may be requested at final inspection. And we are talking photos of interiors of J boxes on the roofs. We are not just looking for the surface. Please have all of those ready. Knowledge and check questions. How much space do you need to leave around each Austin energy meter? That's an easy one.
Gotcha, 52. Keep the party going.
Hey, I like the line of sight option. All right. We got 8 responses. 2 foot, 2 inches. All right. It's still a 2, but 87%. Common required signage. Rapid shutdown switch for solar PV system. Photovoltaic system AC disconnect. It's got the volts and the amps. Energy storage system disconnect. That's one that's often missed. Solar PV system equipped with rapid shutdown. PVAC aggregate panel. Do not remove and or relocate any circuits from this panel. We don't permit loads on the PV side of our DG services. That sticker is important. Inverter output connection. Do not relocate this device, this overcurrent device. Then this enclosure contains feed-through conductors that may be energized when the disconnect is de-energized. That would be a supply side connection. Could be many different connections to a existing service. Warning, electric shock hazard. I can hardly read these. Then last one, warning, energy storage system on site, ESS disconnect and main breaker in main service panel must be off for whole home electric shutoff. All right, so we had 9 responses, 11 responses total on our. Is that better than last time? Hopefully the next one's better. ESS location and placard. ESS on the left picture within sight and within 50 feet. Doesn't require placard. It's on the corner. You can stand back and you can see everything. When the ESS is not in sight, it could be behind a gate. There could have been a gate on that corner, and then it would have required a placard. It's doesn't take much to require a placard and to require it to be out of your sight. We do require a placard if it's not within sight. Per the 21 International Residential Code, garages must be finished, separated from the dwelling unit. That's an international residential code that has a requirement of sheetrock and the doors that are between the dwelling unit to keep them separated is what that is referring to. And that's more of a hazard, fire hazard separation. Per IRC 2021, ESS within attached garages must be listed and marked as suitable for use in residential units. That's an attached garage for sure, and listed and marked for suitable use. ESS must be protected using approved barriers if in the vehicle drive path. ESS guidance, installation and interconnection. ESS must be UL 9540 listed. ESS may not be installed anywhere in a dwelling unit, habitable area, bedroom, closet, etc. If installing batteries in AFD territory, send plans to the given email for a review when individual ESS units are greater than 20 kilowatt hours or when total ESS installation is 80 kilowatt hours or greater. Do not submit plans to AFD otherwise. Not sure which jurisdiction you're in? See the map here. ESS projects must have plans reviewed and endorsed by a Texas licensed professional engineer to be attached to auxiliary power permit and presented at final inspection. We do want those uploaded to the ABC portal and on the permit so that we can make sure everything is in order. Plan sets will be uploaded to the auxiliary power permit and will be reviewed at time of inspection. For the endorsement, inspection will be failed if the endorsement is not present or does not appear authentic. If they were uploaded to the ABC portal ahead of time and those were endorsed, sometimes we've been in the field, same set of plans in the person's hand that was hosting the inspection weren't endorsed. We're able to go onto our computer and verify that the ones that are endorsed are uploaded. Makes it easy if you do it ahead of time. Always review manufacturer's instructions before installing. Right.
All right, thanks, Jalen. Okay, so right now we're going to look at the new inspections process and kind of what this entails.
So somebody else.
Yep, I got it. Thanks, Jalen.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right, so the new solar inspections process is live. Again, we have had some kinks, so just a couple things to note. The pre-construction meeting has been a little bit tricky. Keep in mind it's required for commercial projects, but only optional for residential. However, we recommend it if you've got any design
Megan,
questions.
I see
or
you blue,
things.
but we don't hear anything.
Oh, do y'all not hear me? Uh-oh. Hello, hello? I got a thumbs up. And I'm like, okay, I was like, does that mean you can hear or can't hear? I realized I asked in a confusing way. Okay.
You're all good.
Well, I guess Jalen, maybe it's on your end. I don't know. See if you guys can, figure that out in the room.
We got it.
We'll go from there. All right, cool. Thank you. Okay, so coming back to the AB&C process, again, just keep in mind the pre-construction meeting is required for commercial, not required for residential. It is recommended if and when you guys, again, have any design questions or want to look at a project up front with specs on site. So just keep in mind, you should be able to request that at any time. If you have any issues, please reach out to solarinspections@austinenergy.com, and then we'll get that squared away for you. Again, as we mentioned earlier, we do still have Smart Sheets, so there is that option. It has not gone away. Just keep in mind, we're trying to migrate over to this new process, and hopefully it's a little bit easier because you've got all this information on the AB&C portal. So if you have any customers with questions on when inspections are, they also should be able to find some of that info. Alrighty, so I do have a date here. I'll just mention it. So March 2025 is when we expected to roll off Smartsheet. However, we're going to continue probably to use Smartsheet beyond March. So just keep in mind, again, if you guys have questions, just know that y'all can help us improve this system. If you do have issues, again, please just reach out to us and we'll continue to fix that as we roll on to the new process. Alrighty, having said that, requesting an inspection via the old process or the existing process still looks exactly the same. You'll go to our austinenergy.com solar inspections page. That link is embedded on the website itself. Fill out the required fields. Some are conditionally optional, so you may have to fill out more fields depending on what you're doing. Make sure to use file upload to attach any electrical plans or photos that you want inspector to see prior to that inspection. And then once we receive that, just know that you'll get an email back saying that you've submitted this form successfully. We'll get the data in Smartsheet and then make sure that your permitting looks good as long as you don't have any open service work that's being done or anything else outstanding that we need to correct prior to that final solar inspection or that final energy storage inspection. If any of that happens, of course, we'll reach out to you. We'll let you know that inspection will be canceled until it's resolved. However, we will get all that data and then communicate that back to you guys. Alrighty. So looking at ESS loads behind the PV meter, if and when you have this, you will need to indicate this on the inspection form. This helps us with making sure that our billing system looks good after that inspection. So if the battery is located on the solar side of the PV meter, you'll indicate yes there. And then just keep in mind what you're looking at here are a couple of photos. One's from Smartsheet, and then one is from the new ABNC portal. So again, it should look really similar to what you guys are used to seeing, but just keep in mind that question is mandatory if you're installing batteries. All right, metering. It's possible you will need 2 AE meters for solar installs with batteries behind a PV meter, and your team will want to indicate this on the permit request. So if you've got already a PV meter on site, I think I saw a question about this earlier. You can keep that PV meter, and if you need an additional one, just make a note of it so that that's something that we're looking out for as well. And then, of course, if your as-built design is different from the initial permitted plan set, please add the total system size during the final inspection. We'll make sure to add any of those corrections to the permit itself for you. If, however, it is a completely drastic change, or if your system size went from like 10 kW to 50 somehow, I've never seen that, but if for some reason that happens, we'll ask you to make a modification to the permit, but just keep in mind those are things we can do at or before that inspection. All right, with multiple building meters and batteries online, customers' billing can be confusing, so just keep in mind when you're talking to folks, AE customers are billed for 100% of their consumption, everything they consume on site, regardless of the source, and then credited for 100% of their solar production, even with battery storage. All right, we talked about this a little bit already, but pre-install inspections include roughs and pre-cons. A rough inspection is required if any conduit is going to be covered up. Systems over 25 kW may need additional rough inspections throughout the duration of the project. So particularly if you're doing commercial and you've got a lot of trench work or a lot of things that are being covered up by walls, please do call for those rough inspections. And keep in mind that for residential roughs, you do not need to be present as long as we've got access to all of the equipment. So usually you can get those teed up. We try to schedule those on Wednesdays so that our inspectors can knock them out and get those responses back to you quickly. But if you ever have one that needs to be done, as soon as possible, or if you guys are trying to fill in a trench on Friday, just reach out to us and let us know. We do try to accommodate those requests as much as possible. Alrighty, again, that pre-con meeting, it's an on-site consultation with an Austin Energy inspector on the design and interconnection requirements. If you've got complex setups, you've got questions about metering, you've got questions about the design you're trying to implement, please do request those up front. Alrighty. Now, the other option that can be confusing here for folks is the pre-wire only permit and inspection. And a pre-wire permit is essentially a rough inspection, but with no solar capacity or no energy storage capacity. So basically, if you want to get a building solar ready and make sure all the conduit is in the walls and everything's covered up as needed, that's when you would call for that pre-wire inspection. Austin Energy inspects all pre-wire installs in its territory. Just keep in mind this is something that we will note on your permit as well, so you'll have a record of this into the future if you guys decide, or if this customer decides to go solar 10 years down the line, we'll still have that. You would still obtain the aux power permit with the option pre-wire for solar in the permit description as well as the DG type. And then an inspection pass result will serve as reference for any future solar at that site. Alrighty, so inspection notifications of Smartsheet. Most of you will be really familiar with this, but just as a reminder, You and your customer will receive emails when inspections are requested, postponed, scheduled, and passed or failed with deficiencies, and when the PV meter is installed. If an inspection fails, deficiencies will be reported in that confirmation email. The sender will be from Austin Energy Solar Inspections via Smartsheet, so make sure that you add that to your list of safe senders so that that does not go directly to spam. And then, of course, if you have any questions on any of this, please feel free to reach out to solarinspections@austinenergy.com. Alrighty, so just looking at those emails, here's what they look like. So when you've got a pre-construction meeting requested and then scheduled, keep in mind that these emails were mirrored in the new process. So if and when scheduling in the AB&C portal, you'll still get these emails. They won't be as colorful and they may look a little bit different, but you still get all of the same details, including the permit number, the time of the inspection, the date of the inspection, and any details that you need to know up front about that inspection. Alrighty. So how to be a rock star at an inspection. Make sure to send the correct person. That needs to be a master electrician or journeyman or residential wireman. That represents your company. Make sure that if you guys are hiring subs, those subs are also listed on the permit, because if they're not listed there, we cannot legally give them any information about the job. Make sure that if you guys are showing up with company vehicles, that you've got your TDLR or your technical numbers on the vehicles, and you've got your TDLR license on hand. Bring your wire diagram, any layout details, and then, of course, tools to make corrections, because sometimes there's something small that can be fixed right there during the inspection, and you can get that knocked out, and then, not have to reschedule another one. Alrighty, to prepare for the inspection, make sure to review the distribution interconnection guides, particularly section C, that has just generic requirements for DG systems. Feel free to reach out to us or talk to a solar inspector. Again, you can always reach us at solarinspections@austinenergy.com. That goes right to the inspectors. So if you have questions, they will find them there. Before final inspection, make sure that it is ready for inspection. If you are not actually ready for inspection, it is a violation of City Ordinance 8040D. So something that's not cool, please don't do it. Just make sure that you're ready when you call for those inspections. Typically our wait time is about a one to 2 week wait, but every once in a while we'll have, cancellations or gaps that open up, and we'll try to plug in inspections at that point. When we do that, we want to make sure that you guys are ready. So just be ready as soon as you call for that inspection. Be sure to test the system, but don't leave the meter in. Don't leave everything on. You want to, of course, do quality checks, but only for testing. Don't leave anything on. And then, of course, use the quick reference guide to check your installation meets all the requirements. And I think Stu mentioned this earlier, but that's in Appendix C. Oh, one note here on rebated projects, and this is something that we are sure to stress in the handbook and on the CAF, as well as in our other contractor meetings. But make sure you receive rebate confirmation letter prior to installing your systems. If your systems are installed and you've not received approval, it makes that system ineligible for the rebate. So just make sure that that's happening. And then once you have done all those steps, gotten the approval, installed the system, close the install step in EACP upon requesting that inspection so that we can go ahead and get that closed out. I'm not going to read the common errors. We've been through those before, but please do make sure that you are avoiding those common mistakes. Alrighty, and I'm going to pause here for questions. I didn't see any new ones in the chat, but I may be missing something. Looks like Athena tackled that one. Are you guys sharing this presentation? Yes, we always share this afterwards. Okay, how do I upload my insurance into permitting so we can pull permits anyone on this? No, called 311, etc., and no one that helps. Yeah, so you're going to reach out to the Building Trade Contractor Services Group, BTCS. You can access their group with the chat feature online or make an appointment. I don't believe I have an external email that I can share with you, Chris, but their chat is available Monday through Thursday, I think, 8 to 4. So they should be online right now. And so you guys should be able to ping them and get somebody directly over there. All right, I'm going to see if I've got any. Okay, I'm going to skip that and keep seeing if there's any questions up here. All right. I'm not seeing any new ones. Oh, it's linking to streets when I go to the chat. Okay, Let me see if I can grab that for you, Chris, and I'll plug that link into the chat. And for now, without any other questions, I'm going to pass it back to Ruby. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Megan and team. Right. So some contacts and helpful links. These are going to be the same as our previous technical meeting. Like stated, we are going to send out a PDF form of this presentation. So all these links are clickable, but you should be able to access all of these things. Solar inspections is important. And then contacts. We have our DMO, St. Elmo distribution at Austin Energy, and the phone number there. Some more helpful links. And yeah, thank you guys for joining. We can hang around for a few more minutes just in case anyone has any last questions. I'm also going to send in the attendance link just one more time in case anyone missed it.